this is T-Money from 8DO, and in this video I'll be demonstrating our Ukulele Strummer, which is the twin product to our Ukulele Solo, which I also demonstrated in another video. And the core idea is really, and this goes for all our NAS, our Natural Acoustic String Series, that there's two different products of the same instrument. So the Solo version contains all the multi-samples. In this case, I think the Solo has over 2,200 samples, and the Strummer here has over 4,500 realistic strums. And when I say realistic strums, there's a lot of products today that will mimic strumming, and it's obviously hard to play on the keyboard. And even in the Ukulele Solo, we have strum editions, but sometimes you really need a real human being to play it. There is no fiddling around. There just needs that passion, and strumming can hardly be emulated in its full completion on a keyboard. So that's why we have the Strummer here as well. Everything is tempo synced, of course. And the way it works out is that we have our chord selector here that contains 13 different chords. And if you look down here, you can see all the corresponding keys. We actually sampled every single chord in every single key. And we got our fret controls here as well, which is great for a little more randomization of the frets when you go between chords as well. And on top of that, we got our rhythm selector here as well. And as you mentioned, I'm loading the light patch now, but the full patch actually has round robin on the rhythms as well and the chords. So you actually get that double trouble if you really want the natural variation in the chord. But the rhythm selector here contains 13 different chords, and it's actually 14, and the 14th is marked down here with yellow. The 14th is a muted chord, and I'll demonstrate that in the video as well. And it allows you to go between normal rhythms that are tonal and then go into the sort of more non-tonal realm. And if you want to do some chugs and then go back to the chords, you can do that. But all the rhythms are recorded muted as well. And down here we got our velocity end note, which relates to number 13 here. If you click really hard on the keyboard and it's on, it'll do an end chord as well. Here we got our mono and X-legato. Mono is what I'm going to be demonstrating right now, and later in the video I'll switch to the X-legato, and it's a great feature. It allows you to take any chord and any rhythm and mix them in real time. So let's say that you change the chord and the rhythm in the middle of another rhythm. You can actually do that fluently by using the X-legato. So it allows you to do fluent changes between chords and rhythms at any time you want. It's a pretty brilliant feature. And down here we got the tempo sync as well. But before we get started, let's kick it off here in a little different way. This is normally not how I do videos, but we had a customer that was kind enough to suggest doing a rendition of Somewhere Over the Rainbow by the late and great Israel Kamakakibu. I hope I pronounced that somewhat correctly. And it's a beautiful, I think it's actually the best rendition ever done of the song. It's better than the original. For me, it's one of those few pieces that may stand the test of time. There's a soulfulness, and his voice is so crisp. Unfortunately, he died in the 90s, but it's a great rendition. If you ever want to check out the YouTube videos, you do that. It's just beautiful. And while I play the song, let me just get this guy up here so you can follow the chords here. Essentially, just be sight reading. This is so simple. Obviously, we're not getting into the world of advanced chords. I think we're only dealing with let's see, major and minor and an added ninth. So yeah, I'll do that. So just try to follow it here. You can look down here at the keys as well, and here we go. So that was obviously only the introduction of the song. Let me try to play it again here, and this time I'm gonna bring in our solo ukulele as well, and I'll do that a couple of times throughout this demonstration to show you how they work together. So in this instance, the solo is simply gonna be playing the melody. So I'll start over again and play the introduction, and then I'll add a little solo ukulele on top. So it's super simple to use. Let me just try it to, for the sake of just getting things started here, let me play the initial chord progressions again, but I'll try with some different rhythms here so you can get a feeling for how flexible it is if you just want to play the same thing but with another feel, another rhythm, and again this stuff that's really hard to emulate with normal MIDI notes. And you can see here on the solo we actually have the strum feature built in here, but nothing really replaces the real deal. And you probably noticed that in the end, that was the randomized fret control that was added in, and it just gives a little more electricity to the whole thing. But let me just show you basically how the chord works here, and then we'll get into the more advanced sort of chord rhythm combinations here. But it's very basic. Essentially, right now, I'll just try to play a minor chord in a couple of variations. So try to keep track here of the key switches down here. Maybe somebody should do the Hawaiian rendition of Wild Thing as well. Let's try to spice it up a little bit here, and I'm going to try to use a little more than just a major chord. And as I mentioned earlier on, I did it before actually as well, that last chord is simply done by triggering very hard on the keyboard. So if you click hard and you got this guy on here, it'll trigger the end chord, and you can adjust the volume of it as well. Let's move on here to the rhythm selector as well. Let me just do a basic rhythm set here, and then let's get a little more advanced after that. And it's really one of the flexible parts. We actually haven't got into the whole X-legato thing yet, but it's one of the really beautiful parts about the strum is that you can combine rhythms and chords in real time. So if you want to build more advanced stuff, you can certainly do that. And everything is tempo synced, of course, as well. Let me move on here, and let's try to do a little more advanced combination where we both change the chord and the rhythm together. So the answer is yes, you can totally do jazzy stuff with the library as well. Next up is our X-legato feature here, and the X-legato, as I mentioned previously, allows you to freely blend any chord or any rhythm you want at any time. And it's a beautiful thing because not only do you have your 4,500 fancy strum samples here, both for chords and rhythms, but you have an infinite amount of ways of blending them, and that's exactly what X-legato does. Let me try to just demonstrate that in a couple of different ways. Let's start simple. I'm just going to show you how to do a simple change with a chord, and I'll change in the middle of the rhythm so you can see how the chord change is happening in the middle of the rhythm. So instead of just playing the full like da 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 da, and then you'll notice that it changes inside of the rhythm. So let's go. Okay, so that was fairly simple, just a change on the last sort of stroke in the rhythm. Let me try to do another one here. I'll play a little more advanced chord progressions so you can get a feeling for the sort of wider use of it. So in that example, just keeping the rhythm intact, but change the chords multiple times inside of the rhythm. That's another example of X-legato. Let me try to demonstrate the rhythmic parts of it as well. Obviously, until now, we've just been changing the chords, but you can also change the rhythms. So yeah, there's an infinite amount of options in terms of manipulating the chords and the rhythms together as well. Let me also show you another addition here. This is the perfect fifth that we've added to the library, and it's a beautiful addition. One of the notions that we've learned over time is that obviously there are things you can't strum, but sometimes you get limited by, even though I think we have a fairly extended amount of chords here in each key, but sometimes you get a little bit limited. Sometimes you want to do your own abstract jazzy kind of key, and that's exactly where you got the perfect fifth. So even though that it's a very simple chord, we also have the Ukulele Solo here, which is a different library, but really complementary. They were actually recorded with the exact same instrument, so you have the exact same sound with the multisamples and the exact same sound with the strummer here. But the chord here is really that you play your perfect fifth here, and then you add the multisamples on top of that, and then you can start designing your own chords. So let me just play a basic perfect fifth here. Okay, that's simple. And let me just try to play a little bit with a solo here as well so you can hear the multisamples. And obviously we have a different video as well where I go into great lengths about the solo and demonstrate all the patches and how it works with all the controls and so forth. But let me just try to do a brief demonstration here, and then afterwards I'm going to blend the two. So essentially build chords, blending the perfect fifth with the multisamples here. Now let's try to blend both worlds here. So we're going to take the perfect fifth from the strummer, and then we're going to blend it with the Ukulele Solo multisamples here. And you will notice that the strum function is on, and it's good because it really helps the multisamples blend a little better when you got a little strum action, some fret noises, and and notable release triggers as well. It's one of the great ways you can blend the two. So it's a really powerful combination because you get the natural strum from the strum module here, and then you can build essentially any chord. As you can see, I was just going around different notes and generating all different sorts of chords, and that's the beauty of it. Let me also demonstrate down here the yellow guy here, which is our non-tonal strums. And the non-tonals are great because it allows you to take a normal rhythm and then blend it with the chugs as well. So you can do more advanced type of rhythmic stuff as well by chugging a little bit and then blending with a chord. And obviously that also works with the X-legato. So if you start blending the whole thing together, you can get really crazy. Let me try to do just another exercise here in sort of more advanced rhythmic manipulation of the strummer here. And again, if you think about the wealth of options you have, so it's 4,500 samples, you got X-legato, you got all the different chords, you got your perfect fifth, you got all the rhythms, and then you have the non-tonal rhythms as well, so you can combine the whole thing together, and it gives like an infinite amount of options. And I think it's important actually because you might think, oh my god, these are like recorded this and that, but think about how much content you can blend it anyway, tonally, rhythmically, non-tonally. I think it's pretty neat. Let me do another round of this. This time around, I'll try to go between the non-tonal stuff and the more normal rhythms here, but also play a little more with chord differentiation so you can really get a sense for what happens when you blend rhythms, chords, and the non-tonal chugs together. All right. Thank you so much for joining me in this little journey into the wonderful world of Ukulele Strummer. And I should also mention, of course, that we have a separate video for the Ukulele Solo. The two instruments are really designed to go together, as you can see here, both using the perfect fifth, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the Ukulele Solo as well. This is over 2,200 multi-samples of the ukulele, and as you can see, they're both played with finger and thumb, and we have more variations as well. But the two libraries are really twins, and we actually have a bundle as well where you can get a notable discount if you buy them together, and I highly encourage that because it's the perfect cross-pollination. So anyway, let me just wrap it up here, and for good time's sake, let me just wrap it up the exact same way I started it, by an homage to the beautiful Over the Rainbow.